Hi, this is an interview for the Ramsgate International Film and Television Festival. I'm here with the writer, director, producer of Tammy, a film that has been shortlisted for our youth program, the 15 to 18 section of the youth program. Andrew T. Horng, the director, and I've been joined by Shuang Hu, who is the lead actress of the film as well. Thank you for joining us, Andrew. Why don't you just tell us a bit about the film and yourself as a LA-based filmmaker?
Thank you for having me, Sam. We're really happy to be part of Ramsgate this year. So basically, I am an LA-based filmmaker. I used to work in the TV industry as an assistant, and then I started doing some timed filmmaking competitions, like competitions where they only give you like 48 hours to make a short film. And Tammy was not entered into a competition, but we actually made it really quickly. We only shot the footage in about a little more than a day and a half. And it's yeah, and it's a 13-minute film about an Asian American woman who is also a skateboarder, and she's just stereotyped or ignored by her family. She faces racism in society, and she finally gets an opportunity to shine in like a skateboarding competition. And unfortunately, she thinks that she's going to be the only Asian skateboarder there. But unfortunately, there's another Asian skateboarder who, is kind of stealing the spotlight. We also shot it in black and white, and it stars, a bunch of great Asian American actors.
Yeah, a lot of the cast are Asian American actors, and you yourself are Asian American. And for a 13-minute film, it deals with so many nuanced racial issues. I feel like, did you feel like this was a very important story to tell? This was one of your first, I believe, one of the first shorts you made. Did you know you wanted to tackle all these topics, like when you sat down to write this film?
Yeah, I've actually, so I've done a couple shorts, and this one I felt like I had a flood of ideas. I was just like, oh man, we could just layer this on top of that. And a lot of it, as a writer, you do write what you know. I feel like a lot of what happens in Tammy, I've actually experienced, even though I'm not an Asian American woman. But so it's very personal to me. And what was interesting was when I was casting the film, there were a lot of actors who were saying, "Oh wow, this is the dinner scene is like straight out of my life. How did you know?" So I felt like certain things. As a writer, I went through certain things. I kind of had to guess that other Asian Americans had to go through similar things, and it seemed to resonate.
There's so many themes that you managed to condense into like a 13-minute runtime. One of them that I've heard you talk about is this idea of infighting, like sort of conflict within the Asian community, and that comes sort of to the fore when it comes to the skating tournament that our lead character is involved in. That was the most interesting and most complex aspect of the story to me. Why did you want to explore that specifically?
I just feel kind of like it's infighting is present in any minority community, because when you're in the majority, you don't you're allowed to be three-dimensional. If someone does something, it doesn't really affect you, like, because people see you as three-dimensional. People see you as you don't have like a lack of representation. You're the hero, you're the villain, you're the lead character, supporting character and just in the movies. And there's so many people, it's like very diverse, if you're in the majority. But when you're in the minority, it's like it affects you so much more. And so I think that kind of fuels a lot of infighting, between with like, oh, how do we fight against racism? How do we represent ourselves? And actually that whole infighting part, if I could talk about it, was kind of the basis of why I wanted to write the film. I I wrote it in like November of 2019,
Mm.
and around that time, we actually, I was following, American politics, and there was this one candidate named Andrew Yang who was running. He was like the first Asian American to run as a Democrat, and this comedian made anti-Asian jokes against him, and he ended up forgiving the comedian. And then some of the people in the Asian American community just like pounced on him, and I just thought that was just like an interesting dynamic, because I thought, like, what if, you know, he was like well on his way to becoming president, and he had this whole platform that to help Asian Americans, and then this incident happened where he forgave this comedian, and people just like pounced on him, and then that ended up derailing his campaign. So I
Right.
was like, wow, what an interesting concept. And so I thought I'd write a story about another outsider who is trying to break barriers of her own, and having to deal with that infighting as well in a very different way.
So, Sean, there's quite a few similarities between your character and the character in the film. I know that at a young age, you moved countries because your parents seeking out work, and that's the same as our lead character. And then you've pursued a career in acting, and our lead character wants to pursue the arts as well, wants to get into skateboarding. Was it sort of an interesting role then for you? So it's sort of like kind of touches bases with your own experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think any first generation immigrant, or I guess I was born in China and I moved to Australia when I was 5. So I guess technically my children will be first generation. I think I'm like 0 generation. I don't know. But yeah, I think any like immigrant who wants to pursue anything other than like the academic route or something along the lines of a lawyer, accountant, or a doctor, I think it's like frowned upon, because the Asian community is, well, the immigrant community, they work very hard to move outside of their home country for a better opportunity. So, I think the goal for immigrant parents is always to like give their child the best opportunity for success. And so any immigrant child who then wants to pursue something outside of that, it's like almost like letting the parents down, or they're not like taking their opportunity to the highest reaches. So when I read the script and the story, it's very relatable. So I definitely like felt for my character.
Yeah, the relationship with the parents is very interesting, and what I like another I keep drawing parallels between you and the character. You as an actress starred in the first sort of sitcom with an Asian Australian family in like mainstream Australian television. So it's sort of an example of this idea of being the first in the field. And that really comes to like the fore in the second part of the film, where the family like, oh wait, the first one. And that is, it's not just like being excelling in a craft, it's the idea of standing above the crowd, and that sort of drives the whole thing. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. It's no longer doing it just to be great at something, it's doing it to be the first in the community and in the representation of it.
I think what you were talking about earlier, Shu, about the immigrant survival and trying to pass that on to your kids, like, I think that does lead to a lot of like superficiality, when it comes to like, look at me, like my kid made it as a doctor, well, my kid's a lawyer, well, my kid, and I think a lot of that stuff is very valued, but then other stuff that's more fulfilling to your, on the inside for some people is not really valued. And, there's a line in the story about like, about how like a science degree is actually, that's the key to survival, not, because for a lot of, Asian immigrant families, education was like their way out, but then
Mhm.
they had to like, do something more subjective. They probably would face racism or discrimination, and so they went,
Mm.
with something that was like more solid, like a science degree. You can't argue with the science degree, is what they would say.
Mm. Makes us very superficial, but I think they're just very practical because,
Yeah.
a lot of Asian countries are still in the development stage, and like China for a long time, for like my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation, was very like majority of people in the communist era was very poor.
Mhm.
I mean, it's still communist, but like people are wealthier now. But back in the day, people were poor. And so you move outside of China and, Taiwan, a lot of Southeast Asian countries, because you want wealth, you want opportunity to make money, because you just can't in China. Like if you're stuck in a certain class, often you don't ever move out of it. And so, yeah, it's a way to like make money. And these jobs, being an accountant, being a lawyer, these are all like financially rewarding careers. And I think that's another thing like Asian parents push, because they want us to be safe and secure. So they do it out of love. Because the creative arts is not very financially fulfilling to start with, unless you become really good. Very small percentage. I guess they're just like smart about it. If you study hard and you get a good degree and you get a good job, you're going to make money. 1 + 1 = 2. So like do that. That is the easiest thing.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, I think that totally, and then there's like a conflict because they push their kids into like these practical, jobs and everything, but then there's like a lack of representation. There's a lack of, actors and people in the arts, and then that hurts us, like
Yeah.
our generation. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like a big divide, you can't,
Sure.
yeah. So
How was the shoot itself for you? Because I was reading a bit about it. It sounded like
Yeah.
a bit of a nightmare of a shoot, in of how quick it went from being on paper to being shot to being edited to being able to submit. Was it a bit of a filmmaker's nightmare for you, Andrew?
Yeah, so I don't know about Shu, but yeah, for me, this was like, I've been a part of like 6 short films. Or no, I've been a part of 7 short films in the past couple years, like since 2018. This was like the worst. Like this was, man, this was so I wrote the script, and then due to scheduling, we had to shoot like a week, like 1 week after I finished the script. And so it was just crazy, like casting people and just saying like, yeah, we're going to be shooting on this date and everything like that. And we like, then like it started to rain. It never rains in LA. It rained, and that like delayed it's supposed to be like a 3-day shoot. And yeah, and then we shot the footage really like, in like a day and a half, or a little more than a day and a half. And yeah, it was crazy, but somehow we were able to pull through, despite all the challenges. And afterwards, like for me at least, it really gave me some more confidence, as a filmmaker, that if we could do this, we could do anything.
Don't
100%.
forget the parking on the second day.
Yeah, oh man.
Nobody could find parking at Venice Beach.
Yeah, that was tough.
Oh, and then like, oh no, I don't know if I should say this.
Oh no, just say it.
Go on.
Say it.
We had to guerrilla style shooting because it's like a short film. It's indie and like low budget. And in LA where we're filming, it's a lot of people filming all the time, but you're meant to get permits for big shoots. And we were shooting at Venice Beach, which is like a very famous location. So
we may or may not have gotten in trouble.
Oh, someone asked for the
phrase that in that way.
Yeah. We may or may not have done.
May or may not.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Real underground filmmaking. With the ending, I was surprised because it's sort of quite it's not a triumphant heroic ending. It's like funny, but also it's got a bit of somber to it. Not to give too much away, but is there one thing you sort of are hoping audiences take away from it when they watch the film?
So sometimes it's it kind of comes into question that like what is the line between racism and discrimination and personal responsibility. And the character does face a lot of bad things throughout the film, and I think that does affect her towards the end. But then she's also with her voiceover she's saying she's saying what's actually not, there's like a cognitive dissonance between what she's saying and what's happening on screen. And I just kind of wanted audiences kind of think about that, like what think about like the cognitive dissonance of that, and also what's the line between racism and personal responsibility.
This film's been it's going to be in our youth program, and like reading up a bit about both of you. I mean, Andrew, you've shot 4 short when you were making this film. You then went on to make 3 others in the space of like 5 months or something, which is ridiculous. And Shuang, I've looked at your YouTube, you're creating content every day, which is just amazing. Do you have any like advice for if a young person, like teenage years, watches your film this festival, is interested to get into business? What sort of like a nugget of advice you'd have for them?
Well, for me, these timed filmmaking has has really helped my career. These time filmmaking challenges that are kind of becoming more popular, like the 48-hour film, challenges, and because they really force you to just do something, And I think without that experience, I would have, I probably wouldn't have even thought of making, writing. I would probably wouldn't even thought of writing Tammy. So I would say, like, for any young filmmaker, look up some filmmaking challenges and kind of get your feet wet and see. And if it doesn't work out, like there's always another film challenge, and everybody has fails, and it's a good way to like really get the mistakes out. And
yeah, that's true. And just like do it, I guess. Don't use the resources around you, because it's surprising, because I feel like I'm making a short film every day when I do my skits. I mean, they used to be like really short 15-second skits on TikTok, and I'd be able to film it in half an hour. And now I'm trying to do more long form, like a couple of minutes, trying to have more narrative story to them. And I just basically use the same resources, just add a little bit more. Like, it's amazing how many friends are willing to like act and film for free, and then like so many friends have just like houses that you can film at. It's like, if you want to make something, just use your resources and be very creative with it, because you'd be amazed at what you can make. As an actor, if you want to get started, I would say take classes first and foremost, because when I started, I could not act to save my life, and I really found it very challenging, which is why I liked it so much. I was like, oh, this is hard, guys. This is harder than anything I've done in my life. But then I watch people on TV and I'm like, but they can do it. If they can do it, I can do it. So, but it took me years for it to drop in, I think. So if you're just curious about it, take a class, see what it's like, see what it's all about, because you might do it and discover you don't like it, or you might do it and realize, oh my God, these are my people, but you don't know till you try. But I think classes is like a really great way to like dip your toes, as you say, and get your feet wet. And then afterwards, it kind of like, it is a journey. It is hard. It's not easy for anyone. Don't give up. A lot of this industry is about perseverance, because a lot of people just give up because they don't love it. They're like out for fame, so they'll just, after a couple of years of trying, they're like, I'll do something else, because they're not in it for the art. and their heart's not in it. But if you love this, like if you go to a class or you like get cast in a short film and you just love it so much, just keep going, because people will drop off and then you will rise to the top. That's like,
yeah, no, it's funny, like just piggybacking off of that, I once heard a writer say this quote that's always stuck with me, which is that, you know, no story is bad. You know, stories, you know, bad stories aren't bad stories, they're just not finished yet, you know. And that, like, you know, that is all about like perseverance. You know, you can continue, you know, working on your craft, you know, and you can get better. I'm sure it's the same thing with acting, you're saying.
Thank you, Andrew and Shuang, for joining us. Tammy is going to be in our youth program of the Ramsgate International Film and Television Festival. And yeah, thank you so much both for your time.
Sam, thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Best of luck in the future, guys.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.